The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised. Earthlings and alert the media. The John Lebang Show is back from vacation. Although I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't quite the vacation you would be used to. I didn't go on some trip to Florida, although most of us wouldn't want to be there in the first place. Not with the hurricane coming to destroy the bottom half of the country. And I didn't go to SeaWorld, or I didn't go to California or any place else. I stayed home and worked right here in the studio, making sure that things were in order for when we did come back. And that's what I do. I don't normally take vacations, ladies and gentlemen. Not in the traditional sense anyways. When I'm off the air for a period of time, it's mostly to get things in order so that the next stage in the evolution of the John Lebang Show runs as smoothly as possible. And some of the things we did do while on vacation is we finished Destiny Wars Part 3, and I know a lot of you are eager to see what happens next in the Banger universe, and that's going to be coming up. Big announcement right here. That's going to be coming out on October 1st. And it's going to be played throughout the month, here and there, on all the stations, and as well as the website. And that's where you'll be able to catch it throughout the month. We have some other exciting news that's happened, is that we've now had as some people have heard, we've added a third hour to the John Lebang Show, and that's a music hour. And depending on the station that is carrying it, you're either hearing it before this broadcast or after this broadcast. Check the website or your local favorite station that carries the John Lebang Show for details and times. But I have to tell you, there's more stations, because we didn't only do the Destiny Wars story. We didn't just do that. We went out and got some more stations added to the affiliate networks. We're growing again. In fact, we're on some pretty awesome stations from the UK, as well as we're now in New Jersey. And we've picked up another affiliate in the great state of New York. So we're expanding there. New York is getting as big as Florida is getting, or has gotten. In fact, we're doing really well in Florida. And I feel bad for what's going to be happening to them, not because they're my affiliates in general, but now I have a tie to Florida, versus before it would just be, man, we gotta, that's terrible what's going to happen to Florida. Now I know people from Florida on a more personal level and a business level, and I'm truly concerned about those people down there. I mean, it's already tragic what happened to Texas. But we, beyond expanding the show and getting more stations, and finishing Destiny Wars, we were also out, and that's where I'm going to make a small announcement now. We were also out getting some interviews to bring us back here, back into the role of things. And so, I mean, including tonight's guests, which in the first hour we're going to have Derek Shelmerdine and Rock and Roll Unraveled. We're actually unveiling our new little intro for that segment. We're going to talk about the history of rock and roll bands that are currently still playing, or at least some of the bands are currently still playing to this day in rock and roll. And we're going to discuss what happened in music history as well as some of the current tour information. After that, in the second hour, you're going to get a special guest. We're going to bring in Wayne S. Pierce. He's with American Liberty Radio. Great talk show host. He knows his stuff. And we're going to be discussing everything from North Korea, DACA, Donald Trump, the Republicans, and a whole lot more. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. Now, coming up, we have just some great interviews. At the end of September, the week of the 24th, you're going to be getting, of course, Mr. Derek Shelmerdine will be back with some more Rock and Roll Unraveled. We're also going to have mortgage guru, Rosemary Ashley. And she's going to be helping us understand the current mortgage market. She's going to be talking about first-time buyers and what they should be looking for. And if you're purchasing a house here in the near future, well, some of the things you should be looking for to get the most value from your purchase. In October, we got really special guests. In the second week of the week of the 18th through the 14th, the owner of 920 WON The Apple, Jonathan Rios, will be joining us to discuss what's going on with his radio station, his talk show, maybe talk about some other things that are happening in the world and maybe in New York and whatnot. But also, we're going to be getting, in the second hour that week, we're going to be getting comic extraordinaire Paul Farah coming onto the show, and we're going to be just letting him go crazy. I don't even think we're going to get a word in edgewise. So as you can see, we have a lot of things really getting rolling as we start knocking off the rust and getting back into full stride here on the John LeBang Show. And we haven't even discussed some of the topics yet. Can you imagine it? We're 7-8 minutes in now, and all this exciting stuff is happening in the future, and we haven't even covered anything that is currently happening. And I have to tell you, there's some strange people out there, folks. You know, I've been off from doing the commentary here, but my brain hasn't been off. I've been watching and seeing, and I've seen all the stupid protests and the thing down in Charlottesville. And if you've been tuned into the website, you know that I've actually had some commentary on that stuff. And that's where you can go to, by the way, if you're not getting enough of the banger, if you want to hear updated day-to-day information because maybe something big happened. Usually the banger jumps in and does a quick video on YouTube, and it's up there on the website, and you can see it almost every day. And you should be checking out the website almost every single day, because not only do we have what's coming up on the show, but we also put out news and information, and the banger report, if you want, is right there. You can click it and see what we talk about on the show, probably before we're able to talk about it, because things happen on days we're not here. We're not here discussing the information or commenting on the current climate in the political world or whatever else is out there. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like I said earlier, you got the protests that we're going to probably talk about in the second hour this week. We've had all kinds of things happen there. But, from time to time here on the John LeBang Show, we discuss the phenomenon called UFOs. And because, it is a baffling subject to many people. Every time there's some kind of unidentified flying object, people jump to the conclusions that ET is visiting the planet. Why they would be visiting the planet, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know. Because if I was a extraterrestrial being and I stumbled upon this little planet called Earth, and if I spent any time studying it, and as far as I can tell, they've been talking about UFOs forever. So if they've been studying these aliens, have been studying this stuff, and if I were the aliens, I would have left a long time ago. I would have either wiped out the race or left. Depends on, are they out to, conquer the universe, or are they just out to explore? So you come here to Earth, you see a lot of crazy people. And that's what I've noticed in my time off here. There's been a lot of crazy people, and we now have these crazy people watching. I mean, I don't know how people do it, to be honest with you. They take the time and they watch the NASA feed constantly, looking for something. Like, you don't have anything to do? Maybe people don't. But there was a recent event where they saw, or the interwebs are talking about, where they saw 3 little porthole anomalies right below the space station. And I'll make the article available on my website, www.jlebang.com. You can go to the show prep station there, or the show prep page. And these people see 3 little white, what they call portholes. And I'm studying this because I'm like, okay, let's debunk this, because that's what I do. There's a lot of fake news out there, or as we say here, manufactured news. And because the news, that's because I'll have to delve into this. You know me, we make left turns and right turns here on a dime. We don't follow a certain subject just all the time. So in my left turn here and my right turn, I'm going to swerve back. We're going to stay out of going left or right. I mean, it's the first hour back, ladies and gentlemen, and I may sound a bit rusty. I'm not sure. I feel very enthusiastic about the show. I mean, I haven't even talked about all the things that happened to me while we were off, beyond just the basic stuff that wraps around the show. And I think we're going to get to that at some point in these next few broadcasts, next few hours of the John Lebang Show. But these, to finish the point before we go to break here, these people see these white little anomalies, they're calling them, portholes. And as you study these damn things, you look at them, you're like, dude, it's on the background of the Earth. So you have the space station, these little white things, and the Earth is behind it. It's not out in space, it's the Earth. And if you look to the left of the picture, you idiots, I'm just saying, if you look to the picture and gaze to the left and don't just focus on the 3 little white things there that you can't seem to use your logic and reason to find out, to determine what they are. To the left of that are a whole bunch more of them, and they are clouds, you idiots. They're clouds. And here you got people so desperately wanting the ETs to come to the planet that they're not even gonna use reason at all. It's just thrown out the window. They're gonna look at it and go, oh my God, look at those portals. They look like portals. I can't determine them as anything else, but they are portholes. And if you take the time and look, you look at them, they're clouds, they're all fluffy. And if you just look to the left, there's more of them. But as we hear the music, ladies and gentlemen, all I gotta say is people don't use their brains very often. On the flip side of this, we're going to have our good friend Derek Shelmerdine, rock and roll historian and author, joining us for another exciting installment of Rock and Roll Unraveled. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Listening there. Don't go anywhere. The John Lebang Show is going to be right back. Just ask the hillbilly.
That's right. Right after this.
What about me? Maybe next time. If you are elderly, disabled, receiving SSI or Medicaid, and you have a medical need or require assistance with daily housework, shopping, grooming, medication, you may qualify for housekeeping at no cost. Call now. VIP Home Healthcare, 248-579-3805. VIP Home Healthcare, there when you need them. That's 248-579-3805. Check out the new book from Derek Shelmerdine,
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It tells the story of rock and roll from its roots right up until the mid-70s punk.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Not just the music, but also the events that shaped the music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
It includes the backgrounds to recording sessions, singles, album releases, births, and deaths, epic concerts and festivals.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Shelmerdine has made a painstaking effort to document pretty much every event that would prove significant in shaping popular music.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Purchase the book at www.rockandrollunraveled.com. Follow him at Twitter at R&R Unraveled and look him up on Facebook at Rock and Roll Unraveled.
Rock and Roll Unraveled.
By author Derek Shelmerdine.
Available now.
I think of myself more as a song and dance man, you know.
The only reason that we are still together is that the subtlety of delicate change in the music is, you know, the thing that keeps us together. And so people come along now and they come to see the changes.
Some of it's old, some of it's new, something borrowed, something brown.
It's funny how many times rock and roll's been dead. Yeah, how many times people have said it's been dead, it just keeps coming back like a bloody phoenix.
Rock and roll! And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring back our monthly guest for our monthly segment called Rock and Roll Unraveled, our good friend, Derek Shelmerdine. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thanks, John. How about yourself?
Oh, excellent, my friend. It's been a great summer, lots going on, and I'm telling you, it's better off than being in Texas right now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So we've got a lot of rock and roll stuff to talk about this month. Looks like you have a lot of things planned for us.
That's right. I mean, the first band I thought we'd talk about was The Doors. I mean, one of the real classic bands of the 1960s. I mean, they actually started out, interestingly enough, and what we're going to look at is what they were up to around the sort of late summer, August, September, over the years. And on the 2nd of September 65, a band called Rick and the Ravens were in a recording session, a private recording session. And it was Jim Morrison. It was his first ever recording session. He'd recently joined the band. The band itself was Ray Manzarek's brothers, Rick and Jim, hence Rick and the Ravens. And John Densmore, the drummer, had joined them just before this recording session. And in the session itself, they recorded 6 songs, and they sort of hyped those around the local records promoters, and trying to get themselves a recording contract. They failed miserably, and the Rick and Jim Manzarek decided to move on to pastures green. Robbie Krieger had joined from a band called the Psychedelic Rangers, and he said, hey, my buddy Robbie Krieger would love to join us. So Robbie Krieger joined John Densmore, Ray Manzarek, and Jim Morrison, and essentially The Doors was born.
Now, in those songs that they were trying to record and pass off to a record label, did any of them make The Doors?
Yeah. Hello, I Love You was one of the ones that they recorded that particular day. It was obviously re-recorded. In fact, it was after that, getting on for a year, they then became the house band at the Whiskey A Go-Go in LA, and the lead guitarist with, the leader of the band basically, with Love, Arthur Lee, he was already signed to Elektra, and he persuaded Elektra's owner, Jack Holtzman, to go along to the Whiskey and see Doors, which he did, duly signed them up. But sadly for Arthur Lee and Love, Doors became a lot more successful and effectively eclipsed Love at Elektra.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's way of life, I think. But on the 17th of September 1967, they performed Light My Fire on the Ed Sullivan Show. And it was one of those, censorship was still a big thing in the 60s. And when the producers heard Jim Morrison sing I Couldn't Get Much Higher, they thought, oh dear me, a drugs reference. So they said to Morrison, well, when we do that tonight, because that was the rehearsal, when we do that tonight, you better sing something slightly different. So he said, yeah, okay. Anyway, when he got to the evening live session, he sang I Couldn't Get Much Higher anyway, being Jim Morrison, and they were never invited back.
That's actually in the movie The Doors. You actually get to see a recreation of that event.
Oh, right. Oh, brilliant. Well, they'd had more luck with the Stones because they were on the Ed Sullivan Show earlier in the year, back in January, and they were promoting "Let's Spend the Night Together," and they were told to sing "Let's Spend Some Time Together," and that's what they sang at the outset of that particular one. So they kept them happy, but the Doors never played there again. But what a great gig they did. Well, they did two great gigs coming up now. 1969, they headlined at the Toronto Rock and Roll Festival. And what a lineup. Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Bo Diddley, Chuck Berry, Gene Vincent, and Alice Cooper with Screaming Lord Sutch from the UK, which I think is an interesting inclusion on that one. But it was the first ever gig for John Lennon's Plastic Ono Band because he was still with the Beatles at that stage.
And he had Eric Clapton with him?
That's right, yeah. Eric Clapton was part of that particular band, and they very famously only sort of took the gig at the last minute, and they rehearsed on the plane going over.
It's amazing that John Lennon and Eric Clapton were in the same group for a while.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, I would have loved to seen that show just for that instance.
I mean, it is available on the album Live Peace in Toronto '69, but to have seen them at that time. I mean, particularly when Lennon was virtually at the top of his game, really. I mean, he was still with the Beatles, so that would have been a great time. And they were also at the Isle of Wight the following year on the 28th of August 1970. They were at the Isle of Wight, and that had a phenomenal billing. It had Jimi Hendrix, The Who, Emerson, Lake and Palmer were making their debut. Played Pictures and Exhibition. Tiny Tim was there, tiptoeing through the tulips, I was actually at the concert, well, the festival for all 3 days. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, real contrast, let's say, Tiny Tim, Miles Davis, jazz trumpeter, a band called 10 Years After, blues band that is still very active, Jethro Tull, Joan Baez, and John Sebastian was there. And when he heard that Zal Janowski, his old mate from the Loving Spoonful, was in the audience, he sort of stopped playing the number he was in. He said, "Hey Zal, if you're out there, come and join me." And he did. And they did a couple of acoustic versions of some Loving Spoonful songs. It was absolutely brilliant. A lot of these people are still going now as well. I mean, Robbie Krieger on the tour front, and the Robbie Krieger band are on tour, and you can see them across America between September the 21st and November the 11th. I mean, I won't give all the dates and stuff and venues. I mean, they can all be found on the website for this particular program. And the websites aren't ticket websites; they're all the actual websites of the artists themselves. So great place to check out what's going on. And the other band I thought I'd check out is 10 Years After, and they're on the road as well at the moment. I mean, they're regularly out and about, and they're doing a tour of Poland, America, and Germany between September the 19th and November the 3rd. And what's great is the original drummer Rick Lee and original keyboards guy Chick Churchill are still with the band. Sadly, Alvin Lee, the lead guitarist, phenomenal lead guitarist, he died back in 2013.
Interesting. It's really great having these bands continue on and play tours to this day. So if you didn't get to catch them when you were young, you have your chance right now.
Oh, that's right, and they're still really good as well. Even though there are different musicians, I mean there are some really good musicians around them as well. I mean, with the bass player's a guy called Colin Hodgkinson, and he's played with people like Alexis Corner, the jazz blues band Backdoor, and he's one of these guys that does regular all-star type groups with all kinds of great people.
Awesome. So we got Jefferson Airplane we're going to talk about?
That's right. I mean, another West Coast band. What's interesting, I mean, it just so happened that the Doors were, well, the very early roots of the Doors were just starting. And with Jefferson Airplane, another West Coast band, on the 13th of August 1965, they were playing their debut gig at the Matrix nightclub because Marty Balin, the singer with the band, was part owner of the club. And they sort of kicked off, and they played Woodstock on the 15th of August 1969. 3 days of peace and music it was billed as. 400,000 to 500,000 people, depending on the report you read, attended it. Poured with rain a lot of the time, but that must have been one awesome experience to have been at. Country Joe and the Fish with their legendary Fish chant. Canned Heat, Grateful Dead, again 10 years after, played both concerts. They were at the classic Isle of Wight in 1970 and Woodstock in 69. Jimi Hendrix was there in a band he was calling at the time Gypsy Sun and Rainbows. I think that's a lovely name for a band.
That was before he was officially Jimi Hendrix Experience then?
No, it's sort of in between the two, because he started out as the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Then the original Experience sort of fell apart around the time of their third album, Electric Ladyland. There was a big sort of falling out. The manager, Chas Chandler, left around that time as well. And he went through a couple of incarnations because he had a band of gypsies as well. I think only ever did 2 gigs. But it was after this that he sort of got back together with Mitch Mitchell and started calling himself the Jimi Hendrix Experience again.
Okay.
So, I mean, I was lucky enough to see him at the Isle of Wight. I mean, absolutely awesome. But interestingly enough, in 1972, 21st of August, the airplane were caught up in a riot at a concert in Ohio, which wasn't an unusual affair in the 60s and 70s. You had sort of over-enthusiastic policemen and overactive concert goers, and apparently there was a bomb scare at this concert, and for some reason the concert goers started throwing rocks at the police, so they retaliated with tear gas and the like, and punch-ups followed. Grace Slick and Chick Cassidy, the road manager, were arrested. In fact, that was just a month or so before they actually played their final concerts at the Winterland in San Francisco on the 21st of September, 72. And from the original lineup, George Jorma Kaukonen and Paul Kantner were still in the lineup. I mean, they reformed again as the more commercially acceptable Jefferson Starship, but that wasn't until the 19th of March, 1974. But by mid-1969, lead guitarist Jorma Kaukonen and Jack Cassidy, who sort of joined shortly after that first ever gig, they formed a band called Hot Tuna and got really back to their sort of blues roots, and they were playing in both Hot Tuna and Jefferson Airplane for those last couple of years. And often you'll find, if you look at concerts tickets, you'll find that sometimes Jefferson Airplane and Hot Tuna were on the same bill, and Hot Tuna are really active now. Jack Cassidy and Jorma Kaukonen are very much on tour separately and together with Hot Tuna. And Hot Tuna have a sort of electric version, so some of the gigs are listed as acoustic Hot Tuna, some of the gigs are listed as electric Hot Tuna. And if you go to Jack Cassidy's website or Jorma Kaukonen or Hot Tuna, they've all got their own websites. It lists the dates. Some of them are slightly different because some of them involve various permutations of the 3 people. But in essence, from about October the 3rd through to, well, in fact, September the 16th, Jorma Kaukonen's playing a gig, through to March the 30th, you can catch any combination of those 3 guys.
So the name Hot Tuna, is that in reference to maybe some groupie or something?
I don't know, actually. I'll have to check that out. I'll make a note of that.
You know, it might have been an excited groupie who they enjoyed a lot, and that's why she had a hot tuna.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure it's probably got that kind of origin. It's probably not a lot to do with seared tuna fish.
Canned tuna over here.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, canned tuna over here is very, very popular, especially in the sandwich bars with sweet corn, funnily enough.
Sweet corn?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's almost universally the most popular sort of tuna-based sandwich over here in the UK.
Hey, you. Yeah, you, listening there. Don't go anywhere. The John LeBang Show is going to be right back. Just ask the hillbilly.
That's right. Right after this.
What about me? Maybe next time.
Fans, do you need a video for your brand new song but don't have a lot of money? Then contact John LeBang. His reasonable rates, professional look, and fast turnarounds will help get that song off the ground. Contact him at jlebang.com.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
Forces of darkness, the treasonable maggots who collaborate must, can, and will be wiped from the face of the earth.
We got some punk stuff coming up. Talking about
That's
punk.
right. Yeah, it was a great time, this sort of time of the year, as it were, for both American and British punk bands. And what I've looked at is, again, a bunch of these all seem to be getting their act together around this time of the year. I mean, the New York Dolls, which were very much one of the American bands that inspired the British punk bands that followed a few years later. They were playing a very early gig. They had a Tuesday residency at New York's Mercer Art Center. And on the 22nd of August 1972, they were playing there, but they were being billed as the Dolls of New York. The band had actually come together back in 1971 as Actress. That'd be Johnny Thunders, Billy Mercier, Arthur Kane, and Rick Rivets. They really were an amazing band. But they sort of fell apart after Johnny Thunders left to form Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers in 1975. But what's interesting, and a link with one of the later bands, is an English guy called Malcolm McLaren became their manager. I mean, they never refound the acclaim that they had when Johnny Thunders was there. And they sort of lived on for about another year into 76, late 76, I think, before they finally just petered out, basically. But when Malcolm McLaren created his own British punk band, the Sex Pistols, he had tremendous street credibility because he'd been the manager of the New York Dolls, the legendary New York Dolls.
Right, and the Sex Pistols went on to be pretty famous for a punk band.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, interesting enough, this little section finishes with the Sex Pistols. I mean, they weren't the greatest punk band in the world, musically or any other way, but they were the poster boys for it, and they were commercially, they were very, very successfully. But I mean, some interesting things about how they came together in a few minutes. But just before that, though, I mean, the Clash, another one of the major British punk bands, on the 7th of September 1974, they were playing a gig as El Hueso and the 101 All-Stars, which I think is a fabulous name. They actually abbreviated their name after that to the 101ers. But on this particular day, 7th of September 74, they were playing a pub in London's Brixton, a pub called the Telegraph. And the guy who was the rhythm guitarist and songwriter and singer called Graham Mellor at that time, he decided to change his name to Joe Strummer. And apparently, talking in backgrounds to names, he chose the name Strummer because he was a rhythm guitarist. And it was, strum the guitar. And it was almost a sort of self put down. But the name 101ers is interesting because it sounds as if it's, from George Orwell's 1984, where Room 101 was where you face your biggest fear. Very powerful part of that particular book. But no, it's not Orwellian at all, despite being a punk band. It simply referred to the fact that all the guys in the band lived in a squat together, where they illegally occupied a house. And that was at 101 Walterton Road in London's West 9.
Hey, you had to live somewhere.
Absolutely. Everybody's got to be somewhere. And I mean, the 101 has carried on into mid 1966. 76 was when Joe Strummer left. He joined a band called London SS, and very shortly after that, they became the Clash. And in fact, 21st of August 1952, happy birthday, Joe Strummer. Although sadly he died in 2002. But I mean, what a guy, what a band. And they're one of the few. I mean, been looking at the sort of hit records of various punk bands of this sort of era. And unlike the 60s, when British bands did very well in America, British punk bands did very little hit-wise in America. In fact, the Clash were quite rare. They had a couple of hits in America, but that wasn't until the early 80s. They were overdoing a Rock the Casbah tour, and they had a hit with the title song in 1982. I mean, in the UK, they had about 20 hit records, the last one in 1991. So it's quite interesting how it differed.
Yeah, and Rockin' the Casbah isn't exactly punk anymore. You know, it got this like 80s new wave sound to it. A little bit. Absolutely. I mean, punk itself, I mean, that era was very much, it was sort of kicking off in the UK, kicking off in 1975 and finished basically at the beginning of 1978. And then, as you say, it morphed into the whole new wave thing. And the next band we're looking at, I mean, the Stranglers, very much the same sort of story. They actually formed in Guildford in Surrey on the 11th of September 1974. And it's a bit ironic. I mean, Guildford is just outside London. It's a very affluent, very middle class, very stockbroker sort of belt where everybody's quite well off, and not the sort of breeding ground you'd think a punk band would grow up in. I mean, they had their first hit. I mean, 77 was when punk broke in the UK. And they had their first hit then with a great song called Get a Grip on Yourself. I think that's a brilliant title. They had 37 UK hit singles, last one in 2006. And again, happy birthday to Hugh Cornwell. He was the guy that was very much the driving power behind the Stranglers. And he was born on the 28th of August 1949. And again, he was guitarist, singer, songwriter. But back to USA, the Runaways, the girl band, which is really quite rare at that time. Joan Jett.
On the 12th of September 1975, they played their first ever gig, and it was at a private party for the rock journalist Fast Freddie Patterson, which another great name, and it was at his home in Torrance, Los Angeles. And they came together, the Runaways, when producer Kim Fowley bumped into Sandy West and Joan Jett, and the three of them were all of the same mind in terms of wanting to form an all-girl punk band. And they teamed up with Mickey Steele on bass. But by the time of their first album, which is mid-76, eponymous album, Jackie Fox had replaced Mickey Steele, and they'd been joined by Lita Ford on lead guitar. I think she's a great lead guitarist.
Yes.
And Cherry Curry as the lead singer, who used to perform resplendent in waspy suspenders and stockings. Well, enough said about that, otherwise we'll all be in trouble. But I mean, coming back to, as we started off talking about the Sex Pistols, they managed to pop into this list because, interestingly, on the 20th of September 1976, the Sex Pistols were playing at London's 100 Club was hosting the first British punk festival, and they also on the bill there were Susie and the Banshees, and Sid Vicious was the drummer with Susie and the Banshees. So you got the Sex Pistols and Sid Vicious on the same bill, but in different bands.
And is that how they met?
Yeah, I think so. And what was interesting was the way they all came together. originally, their first record contract was signed by EMI, but they really were. Punk was getting really quite out of control by this time, and they appeared on a BBC, no, an ITV, British TV afternoon news magazine type program, and the host was goading them because they were a punk band. He was goading them to say something outrageous. So
Because
one of
punk
them
bands
did.
never do that.
Absolutely. I mean, this guy, and at this time, this was like unreal. He used the that dreadful F word on live television. It resulted in that host being sacked the following day. The Pistols were they were promoting a tour. They were just about to set off on about a 30-gig British tour to promote their first single, Anarchy in the UK. And most of the venues are owned by councils. And of about the 30 gigs that should have been, about 6 took place because the promoters and/or council cancelled most of the gigs.
Oh boy.
And the EMI mandarins decided that the label that gave the world the Beatles couldn't possibly have the Sex Pistols on its roster. But they went to... what I didn't say then was that when they left, their sort of severance pay, as it were, was from EMI was £40,000, which is about $51,000. And then they immediately joined A&M, and again, very short stay. Had one particular single that was technically released, but it more or less escaped, and there are a handful of copies, and it's now worth a small fortune. But when A&M sacked them, about a month after they joined them, they got another severance pay of £75,000, $97,000. So by the time Virgin picked them up, which is where they stabilized, as it were, and released one album and a bunch of singles, they picked up nearly $150,000 from 2 record labels. Absolutely incredible.
Just as severance pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here you
they
go.
Must have been buying them out of the contract, I suppose.
I wish somebody would buy me out of my contract.
Oh, I could live with that. Somebody getting upset with me and giving me $100,000, I think I could live with that without too many tears and heartbreak.
That's
But
right.
they played their last gig on the 14th of January 1978 in San Francisco at the Winterland. And for me, that's really, and the book, Rock and Roll Unravel, that's where I essentially finished the story, because it's sort of rounded off in that sense. But as you say, I mean, punk may have itself finished by then, but they had the Sex Pistols didn't ever crack the American singles charts, but they had 18 UK hits. A lot of them were re-entries, and their last appearance on the UK charts was in 2007. So absolutely amazing story.
And now they haven't been around to be on the charts, so they were just hanging around the charts in 2007, or am I wrong on that one?
Yeah, no. Well, what happens is that because the Sex Pistols seem to become the poster boys certainly for British punk, they're used in a lot of film soundtracks. They're used in a lot of advertisements, and I think every now and again there's some particular event that goes on. And one of the Sex Pistols songs is associated with that, or gets a lot of airplay, and all of a sudden they have another hit record. Because I mean they burnt out. I mean by beginning of 1978, it was all over. Sid Vicious was dead, of course, shortly after that, and Johnny Rotten. John Lydon, he's very much distanced himself from that. He refuses to answer to the name Johnny Rotten anymore. He's been in bands like Pill. He's also, I'm not sure if he's still with it, but he became very romantically involved with a rich American heiress lady. I don't know if they're still together. And he made some advertisements, certainly in the UK, for a butter manufacturer. So the whole thing... really tongue in cheek.
It says a lot, Derek, that songs and bands can endure longer than they actually stayed together, and that shows you how timeless some music is.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean the Sex Pistols as well. I mean, I hate to use the word unique too much, because there aren't degrees of unique. You can't be a bit unique. But there are lots of clips of that last concert at the Winterland. And if you find one of, I forget what it was now, it was an Iggy Pop song, the last song they ever did. Johnny Rotten actually kneels at the end of the song. He kneels down at the front of the stage and sort of looks into the audience and sort of snarls out at them, "Ever feel you've been had?" And absolutely incredible. I mean, the manager was Malcolm McLaren. I mean, he was the Svengali very much behind them, and he was the one that drove them through 50 grand from EMI, 100 grand nearly from A&M. He was somebody who understood what he was trying to achieve and how he was going to achieve it, and he did. He just saw an opportunity to make money, and he did. But along the way, he's created what has to be a legend, really, the Sex Pistols.
Definitely. So we got a lot of these punk groups are going on tour, right, this year?
Absolutely. The Runaways, I mean, they're not together as a band, haven't been for a while, but Lita Ford is on tour in the USA and Canada from the 1st September through to January the 5th. But what would be great, if anybody fancies a week of it, is she's one of the people on the Monsters of Rock cruise, February the 11th to the 16th next year. Now that would be brilliant. And Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, they're touring America September the 9th to December the 2nd.
Now, has she changed her lineup through the years, or does she still have the actual same Blackhearts back in the I Love Rock and Roll days?
I'm not sure. I think probably some of those Blackhearts will have changed over the years. I'm not 100% sure on that.
No problem.
But the Stranglers are on tour as well. They're one of these bands that's sort of always been together, always been in the background, always been beavering away. I mean, they had 37 UK hit singles, again up till 2006. Spectre of Love was their last one. And they're on tour in the UK, France, and off to New Zealand and Australia, September the 17th to February the 12th. What I'm really impressed with is that the leader, basically, Hugh Cornwall, they have a sort of gap in the middle of that after France. And he's decided that he's going to do his own individual tour. And between October the 18th and the 4th of November, you can actually catch Hugh Cornwall on tour in the UK. Now that's a busy guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But musicians, one thing about them, they love to play and they love to perform. So the true musician will go out there and play, even if his band is not on tour. He'll go find a reason to jam some gigs.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's great that the way that there was a month or so when there was nothing happening. You just imagine having a beer, thinking, yeah, I could fit a few gigs in there, up around the UK before we shoot off to France and Australia. I think it'd be brilliant.
Yep, got to keep those chops up.
Absolutely.
So why don't you, as we closing out tonight, why don't you give everybody information about your book and where they can do some research and get some more information about you and what you have going on.
Oh yeah, lots of information about the book, Rock and Roll Unraveled. And what it does, it tells a story of rock and roll from its blues roots, Robert Johnson and the like, through to mid-70s punk, and that's available on Amazon, so it's very easy to get hold of on Amazon, and the website as well as information about the book. It's got a lot of other information about everything around the subject, really. Lots of stuff on there, and that's rockandrollunraveled.com. That's rockandrollunraveled.com. And Facebook as well. If you're into Facebook or Twitter, I'm very active on both and would love to hook up. And on Facebook, I'm on Rock and Roll Unraveled, so that's at Rock and Roll Unraveled. And on Twitter, I'm on at RNR Unraveled. Not enough room there for the whole name, so Twitter's just RNR Unraveled. And again, every day I'm putting stuff out, some from the book, some around the book, some completely different stories, all about rock and roll and the music scene.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Well, we'll see you next month, Mr. Shelmerdine.
I'm looking forward to it already, John.
Where do you think you're going?
The John LeBang Show will be right back.
So grab a beer and a smoke and sit your butt back down. Stay right here.
Powerful, epic music by Toothbox Row. Life-changing lyrics come in every style, empowering humanity to finally unlock the chains of bondage. Experience the edgy side of positive music and rock your world today. From Primal to Divine, available now at sassyalternativemusic.com.
If you want to contact the John LeBang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John LeBang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John LeBang Show. Now here's John.
All right, folks, welcome back. As we're winding down the show, or at least the first hour here of the show, figured I'd fill in the gaps of what I talked about in the first segment and things that happened to me while we were on supposed break here. And even though we weren't broadcasting brand new episodes, you guys got quality broadcasts, as most of you know. We had just about the entire Banger universe was played for you during the month of August. And during that month, we had some excitement around here. About 2 weeks ago, maybe a little less, we had a pretty big storm come rolling through here. And it seems like the storms, and we're going to talk about this in the second hour this week, seems like the storms are striking us. And there's a lot of people blaming it on certain people, but we'll get to that later. But this storm came in, and it was just a beast. It came rolling in. It was high winds. It just started pouring. We hadn't had rain most of summer. It's been a really, really lackluster rainy summer. We just haven't had much. It's been cooler than normal. That global warming is affecting us really bad now. So this storm comes rolling in, and I hear the rain, so I'm like, okay, I'll close the windows, because you hear the drips and it's pounding against the window and stuff like. So I close the window, and I'm hearing, oh my God, there's a drip keeps coming in. I can't hear where it's at. Walk over, the furnace room is full of water. My roof was leaking. We had to make a snap decision, and we're actually in the middle of that. We called the insurance company. They're helping us out. And we're going to get a new roof on the studios here. So that's an exciting time. Rarely have I been on the end that had to pick the freaking color for anything. And here I am going, there's like 12 or 14 colors of shingles out there. And we're going to go with those dimensional shingles because they look pretty good. And I'm like, well, what the hell? How am I supposed to pick? I don't know what to pick a color. I've never had to pick shingles before. So that's something I've been stressing my brain over for the last few days. Like, what freaking color am I going to put on the roof? Because now I can revamp my entire building here. We could paint the building if we want, if we get a new roof and I pick a color with the roof. So all of a sudden, a little rain event, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because the insurance company is doing what they're supposed to do and covering an emergency. But from not having to think about any of that stuff, now I'm like stressing over it a little bit. Like, what freaking color? I got to pick it Monday, by the way. So by Monday, I've got to decide what freaking color my roof is so they can actually do it. And I think I'm going to go with some kind of darker gray. And, some of the people are like, well, it's going to be hotter because of the darker color. And I'm like, yeah, but there might be a little bit of R rating in the winter when the sun's beating on it too. So, it might help there. And that's, my biggest concern is not freezing to death in the winter. I don't even care about how hot summer gets. It doesn't even bother me. Warmth, so you sweat a little bit. You wash your armpits out with a rag every once in a while. You're all good, if you're stinking up the world. But in the wintertime, you got to wear 47 layers. The heat's got to be on all the time, especially here in Michigan, because we deal with all that friggin' climate change. I mean, climate change is on a daily basis. We're 20 degrees below normal right now. Joan, are you ready for me yet? Hey, Shady, come on in. All right. I thought you were going to talk all hour, and then I wasn't going to get on. I always make time for you, Shady. Well, you might make time, but sometimes you take so long that I don't have much time to have time. That sentence was a little confusing. Only for you, John. Now, did you tell him about Destiny Wars? I sure did, but I forgot to mention the name of the title. How could you do that, John? My name is in the title. Well, don't be insulted, Shady. Well, are you going to tell him, or am I going to tell him? Well, you love talking about yourself, so why don't you go right ahead, Shady? I know I like talking about myself, but that's because I'm cool. I'm super fly and super cool. Okay, get on with it. All right, so the new Destiny Wars is coming out October 1st. It's called Shady and the Mystery Freaks. And what are the Mystery Freaks? A bunch of weirdos, John. Could you elaborate? Well, not without giving out spoilers, John. That's a good thing. We don't want to give out any spoilers. It's bad enough we're teasing everybody right now. You can say that again. So, could we get on with this? There's some beer waiting for me after the show. All right. Well, we're waiting on you. What do you mean we're waiting on me? You've got to introduce it. Oh, right. I've been off for so long, Shady, I totally forgot how this went. Typical, John. Very typical. This hour's cool or uncool is... You sounded kind of gay there, John. What? What do you mean I sounded kind of gay? Well, I don't know. It was just weird. You been hanging out with Caitlyn Jenner or something? No, I've been hanging out with you guys working on Destiny Wars. By the way, since we're on that again, did you tell him there's going to be a new promo out soon where I'm going to be talking about the Destiny Wars? No, I don't. I'm not going to put out what trailer information and stuff is coming out until it comes out. Well, how people going to know about it? Shady, because, I don't have a good answer for that. Do you ever have a good answer? That depends on your opinion. Well, my opinion is do that intro over. You're kidding me, right? Will you just do it? This hour's cool or uncool is... that sounded a little better, John. Will you get on with it? Oh, okay. Geez, relax. Do it again for me. This hour's cool or uncool is... that was very monotone, by the way. Don't you think you could have a little more energy in your voice? Shady, you're really getting on my nerves now. What do you mean I'm getting on your nerves? If you do it right, I'd be talking already. That's all you do is talk, Shady. That's like calling the kettle black, John. Don't you mean the pot calling the kettle black? Well, since we're out of pot, not really. Yeah, we got to get Stoney back soon. Well, that's some other adventure we'll do later. Now, will you give me an intro I can work with? All right. This hour's cool or uncool is... Shady and the Mystery Freaks, coming out in October. That's really your cool or uncool? Well, yeah. Why not? You made me do multiple intros, and that's the best you've got? Well, what's wrong with it, John? Well, I thought you'd have something relevant. What's more relevant than me? Now, can we get to the phones, please? All right, going out to Naples, Florida. Cora, cool or uncool?
Sonny, I can't wait for that to come out. I saw the trailer. That shit is a sexy man.
See, one for the cool, John. And she thinks I'm sexy. Do they really have those things in Florida?
Only for old people.
You mean there's no young chicks down there to look at?
No, they all left because of hurricane.
Okay, thanks for your call. Told you one for the cool, John. Up next, we're going out to Parts Unknown. Ditzy, you're on the John LeBang Show.
How come I don't have a part in the next Destiny Wars, John?
Well, we're saving you for something bigger.
I think I should at least have a small part, John.
Well, can you make it back to the studio? I'll write something in.
I don't know if I can be there. Can I just call in?
But it's not going to be the same. I mean, how are we going to include you in a story if you're just making a phone call? Listen, we have other things planned for you.
Oh, whatever, pervert.
Well, that's not what I meant.
Whatever. Bye.
And thanks for your call. Going out to Chicago. Peppa, you're next.
Oh, honey, I want to be in that one, too.
Listen, lady, you're not from Detroit, and it's based in Detroit.
Oh, honey, I've been there once or twice. I remember one special time.
John, I don't think this was a good idea. What's that, Shady? The cool or uncool I picked. Now we got people calling up, bringing up bad memories.
Oh, honey, it was a good memory. Stupid
Okay, thanks for your call. All right, John, are we done here? Yeah, we're out of callers. Well, that's good, because I'm out of patience. I'm going to get on out of here. Bye. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for yet another 60 minutes. Don't forget to go to my website. That's www.jlebang.com. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show. This is John Lebang from the Banger Studios.
3, 2, 1. We have